Students, today we will study about the alternative center of powers and emergence of new international organizations like European Union, ASEAN and rise of the Asian economy, especially the China. Through these topics we will understand how these changes created a new alternative power center. So this is all we will study further in this slide. So let's start with the topic. How world a new world order was shifted after the World War and after the Cold War era. So the first organization that was established after all these things was the European Union. So first we need to understand how European Union came into existence and what is the evolution of European Union. So after the Second World War, the whole Europe economy was ruined, and America given a lot of financial aids through its Marshall Plan. Earlier we also discussed about the Marshall Plan that was granted to the Western European countries for their economic restructuring and for the revival of the economy. So under this Marshall Plan, later on an organization for the European Economic Cooperation was formed in 1948 to solve the economic crisis. So this was the first organization in the evolution of European Union. So this European Economic Cooperation was formed in 1948 for the coordination of economy and the restructuring of economy in the whole Europe. Following the Second World War, Treaty of Rome was established and European Economic Community was formed. The next step, European Economic Community was formed in 1957, and this also created not only an economic dimension but also a political dimension in the European Union. So now the expansion of European Union and European Union became the more important organization. So a lot of new things were started after that, and when Soviet Union falls after the 1990, so this turn and this created the new term like European Union. So after the fall of Soviet Union, European Union, a full-fledged name was created. And what are the things that happened in European Union? So after the expansion, a lot of new things were started. A common currency like Euro currency was formed under the Maastricht Treaty in 1993. A common foreign policy was started. A coordination among the Eastern and Western Europe was created. So through all these things, European Union tried to unite the whole Europe that earlier was divided into Eastern and Western Europe due to the Berlin Wall, also one of the reason, and due to the Soviet Union. So now they try to integrate the whole European Union into one group. That's why it's called European Union. So this European Union expand a lot. A lot of new members would also join the European Union, and later on its GDP becomes 12 trillion in 2005. So through these estimates of data, the 12 trillion economy in 2005, you can understand how many countries of European Union came into it. And later on, the influence of European Union was so much that it's also creating a threat to the dollar also. So euro became a threat to the dollar, and this international organization started giving the political influence also, because some of the European Union members like say Britain and France were also a permanent member in United Nations Security Council. So in this way also they are trying to influence any important issue that are raising in UNSC. So these are all things that's led to the expansion and evolution of European Union. So a lot of new things were started in it. This evolution of European Union was not happening in one go. A single European Act 1985 dismantled the trade barrier between the countries amongst the European countries, established a single market. Foreign policy were changed through the common foreign and the security policy EFSP, created a coordination among the European countries. So that's how these countries came together. And let's do the emergence of European Union as strong international organization. And what is the foreign policy of European Union? So earlier I also mentioned that European Union tried to develop integrate a common international ideology amongst these European Union countries. The common foreign and security policy were one of its policy to coordinate between the European Union countries and its permanent members in UNSC also tried to influence the international affairs through its foreign policy. So this is the one thing. And the second thing is the military power. So not only in foreign policies or economic policy, but also European Union one of the strong military power at that time, because after the USA, it was after the USA only the European Union had that much of arms and the military expenditure. And it's also created a European Defense Agency for its military power. And through these things, it also participates in NATO or undertakes a peacemaking mission. So all these things leads to its military power also. So that's how European military power also was so high during that time. So these are the things that created and that's led to the creation of European Union, not only as an international organization for economic purpose, but also it shapes the foreign policy, military power, international relation between these countries. So that's how this European Union was formed. But there are some of the limits in the European Union also, because earlier when Britain had a Prime Minister, Mr. Margaret Thatcher, he kept United Kingdom out of the European Union market. So this was the one of the limits at that time. And the second one, later now Brexit happened, so these things now changing the dynamics of European Union politics. And some of the country was not ready to adopt a European currency, euro, as their common currency. So these are the some of the limits in the regulation or in the uh, in the evolution of the European Union. But although we can say that European Union one of the strong organization that was formed during that time period, and it's also shaped the economy or some of the very important decision in the Europe Union. Because after the division of Eastern Western Europe, this European Union somehow very importantly integrated the whole Europe into one map. So these are the very important things. That's why it was one of the very important organization in the international level. And this blue star with red logo with yellow star with the blue logo was a flag of European Union. And then now the second very important organization that leads to the alternative regional powerhouse was ASEAN. So how it is created and what is its full form? It is the Association of the Southeast Asian Nation, ASEAN. It was founded in 1967 by the countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand. So these organization was created. And how why this organization was created? Because all these Asian countries going with the common issues, like after the World War they had an issue of poverty, economic backwardness, and all these wanted to prosper their nation building and to promote peace and stability. So all these demands or all these aspiration of these countries, Asian countries, came in the form of ASEAN region or ASEAN, a regional powerhouse. So this is how this organization was came into existence. And this organization tried to create a regional stability, peace, and the fostering development of cooperation between the Asian countries. Because other countries on the international platform are influenced by the big power like Russia and USA, but this ASEAN created for the Asian people, so the voice of the Asian people could be heard and their issue can be addressed easily. So this is the one of the reason for the creation of ASEAN. And the second is the policy famous focus. So what their priority? Their first most priority is to economic growth, regional stability creation, addressing the issues that are going in Asian specifically, like very important issues, infiltration, economic degradation or human trafficking, environmental issues. or they wanted to create a development in their economy. So all these things were created. A lot of trade units were also created after that. What are the ASEAN Free Trade Agreement, FTA, very famous, we all know. So this free trade agreement was created in 1992 to eliminate the traffic barriers. What does it mean? It means that there was no tax for the inter-regional trade between the Asian countries who are the member of the ASEAN. So that's how they try to create a traffic free or without any traffic barrier inter-regional trade development in 1992. This was the one for the economic development of the countries. In 2003, ASEAN communities created three pillars like ASEAN Security Community for the security military development, ASEAN Economic Community, and the third is ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community. So these three regional organizations, one of the three pillars of ASEAN community. A regional forum, ASEAN Regional Forum in 1994 were also created for the foreign policy and security between these Asian countries. So that's how these bodies was created for the development and integration of Asian countries. And this FTA agreement that was signed at that time, it's contributed a lot in economic growth amongst these developing countries, because all of these are developing countries. There was no developed countries, so all had a same concern. So this thing also created a lot of development, a lot of, even you can see here, 45 $452 billion in 2016 and $1 trillion in 2020. So with this figure you can understand how much successful was the free trade agreement between these Asian countries. So this is all about the Asian trade agreement or its successful. So that's how these two organization was became very important and led to the a lot of rise in the Asian economy, and it's created a strong view on the other things. And now let's come to the next topic, the rise of China's economy. So what happened in it? Because China, as you all know, China was a communist country, and after the Mao Zedong revolution of China in 1949, China became a communist country, and it's adopted the Soviet model of economic development, like everything is owned by the state, heavy industry owned by the state. There was no much individual enterprises was there. So all these things same as the Soviet system was there. So China later on, when, as we know that China has these are the some of the uh, features of the China's economic model. But later on, because it has a short of foreign exchange and it's needed to buy some of the good world technology or goods in the world market, so China decided to substitute this imports demand by the domestic production. So it started its own domestic production because do not had a enough foreign exchange to buy the goods from the world market or the world economy. And a lot of issue was also emerging, like food production was not so good and growing population. As you know, earlier China was the most populated country, so these things created a lot of issue, same as the USSR, because USSR, earlier we studied how USSR disintegrated. So economic was one of the reason for the disintegration of USSR, because it also followed the state owned economy. So as the same situation as was earlier in USSR, now China also struggling with these things. So these things led to a lot of reforms in the China economy in 1970s. What are these reforms? So the first and very famous name when it's about the reform was Zhou Enlai. So Zhou Enlai created and given four modernization reforms. These four modernization reform included development in modernization in agriculture, industrial development, science and technological development, and military development. So these are the four motives of the Zhou Enlai, because with these four development or with these four things changes, he wanted to transform the economy of China. And later on, Deng Xiaoping started an open door policy. What does it mean? Open door policy was now means that now China does not remain a closed door policy. Now other countries or other Western European countries from the old world can come and invest in the country, and this led to the high level of capital or investment in the China. It's introduced the market economy. Now state do not control the economy, that state control economy. Now this state control economy transformed into market economy, where market forces decides the price of the things. So gradually China tried to reform in the economy through their reforms in agriculture. So because agriculture foods production was not enough for this population, so with these reform now the agriculture production was increased. Industries reform led to the industrialization of the China, and scientific discovery and researches led to the a lot of new scientific development and new technology in the country. Even today we see that these chips toys or these chips items of in India and all over the world was the result of all these reforms that happened in 1970s and 80s. So that's how this China turned into a dominant economy. And later on, with the introduction of this market economy, privatization of agriculture started in 1982. But all this process was very gradual. It was not certain that people do not understand this. So these all reform was taken step by step. Later on, after the agriculture privatization, industry privatization was also happened in 1998. So this is how these things were gradually started. Later on, trade barriers was eliminated. So that's how this all things breaks the stagnation in the economy. The stagnation that earlier we seen in the economy now stopped. The privatization of agriculture led the agriculture production and increment. And the foreign direct investment, we all know what is foreign direct investment. With this foreign direct investment, China was a favorite destination for FDI. Now a lot of industries, a lot of new uh, Western countries coming for FDI in China. So all these things led to the a lot of acceleration in the economy and increase the employment rate. 100 million jobs were employed. 100 million jobs employed the people. So all these things led to the a lot of prosperity in the China. And one other thing that led to the all this thing was China was in the category of developing economy, so there was no much restriction from the for the like carbon trading, etc. So the now factory or were very in very free hand. They can invest and do a lot of things. So that's how also, because in being in a developing country category, the China got an free hand over the environmental restriction. So that's how also it helps it's to gain its motive. And all these changes and all these reform that's created by Zhou Enlai in 1973 and the young Deng Xiaoping open door policy, this really benefited the economy, and a lot of new step was taken by these things. Even though we can say that after 2000 China became one of the very dominant economy in Asian countries. So this dominance of China economy started influencing the other countries. We see that later on there was some sort of fear against the China was started. It started some of the issue with ASEAN organization. Even USA had started conflict with China, and Japan also had an conflict with the China. So with these economic competency, or we can say with the economic power of China in 1970, later on the political influence of the China was also seen. We even today this expansion policy of China, why it could happen? It happened because of its economic power. Without the economic power, China cannot do such thing that it's doing today. So these all things were the some of the important issue that leads to the, or we can say some of the revolutionary steps or reform steps that taken and led to the rise of China's economy in 1980s. Now let's come to the next slide. India China relation. We all know how India and China relation was earlier, and classes also we a lot discuss this issue of India and China relation, and how it was started, and now how it's going on. So India and China was a very cordial relation since the independence. At the time of independence, we had a very good relation. There was no issue. Even I earlier also mentioned that India was one of the first country that accepted the China as a country after the communist revolution of China in 1949. And one of the slogan was also very famous, the Hindi Chini Bhai Bhai. India first Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru had an agreement, or had an ideological exchange called Panchsheel between the India and China countries. So these things were going very good, but later on, after 1950s passes, a new thing was started, that the first conflict we have seen with the China annexation of Tibet in 1950. So during the time of annexation, India didn't reacted with any criticism openly, but Dalai Lama, one of the spiritual leader of Buddhism, who taken the refuge in India. So this political refuge seen by the China as an anti-China activity and starting agitation against the India. So this was the first issue that started in 1950, but later on these thing became worst when there was two territorial border disputes between the India and China. That one is from the western front in Aksai Chin area of Ladakh, and the second one is the issue of Arunachal Pradesh. So, what China has said, the China clearly denied all the territorial arrangement done during the colonial period. So, they don't agree the earlier colonial agreements on this border area. So this created a lot of dispute between these countries. So in when suddenly 1962 China attacked both these front of Aksai Chin area and Arunachal Pradesh. So it was so sudden that India was not prepared for any war. So in this war of 1962, India was totally defeated, and a lot of India image was really damaged with this war, and a lot of important minister during the Nehru time period was resigned. V.K. Menon, one of the very prominent minister, resigned from this post. So this was the military conflict or led a war, Indo-China war, very famous war, 1962, created a low relation, we can say, very a low phase of relation between India China at that time was created. So these two issue was remain later on also. This relation of China later little bit improved after 1970s, when it's become less ideological or more pragmatic. It's led to the economic cooperation, or a little bit of dialogues and regional cooperation was started after that, because they started sharing platform on the regional organization. So these all things were started after that, and created a good relation, on we can say stable relation between these countries. But even though the problem remains the same, and we are not, even today we are not able to solve the issue of Arunachal Pradesh. In recent year we see the military attacks of the China, and how China trying to create pockets village in the Arunachal Pradesh border, and how it's called it's their own territory, that Arunachal Pradesh belongs to China. So all these things were a issue of tussle between the India and China, and it's still a very complex issue between India and China. 1962 war I already mentioned. So in this map you can see this, the Aksai region area were controlled by the China and claimed by the India. So this one of the region, and northeast area of Arunachal Pradesh, this was the another region. Later on, when 1988 Rajiv Gandhi became the prime minister, so he went to the China. It's created a not very much, but it's led to a turning point, or we can say a change in the relation between the India and China. And later on, a lot of international organization also we shares the border, and India and China had a strong bilateral trade relation, because a lot of consumption of China's good happened in India. We can say in the fact that 18 billion in 2006 to reaching 136 billion in 2003. So this shows the importance of bilateral trade between the India and China. So although we are the neighboring country, but our relation was not so good with each other. So these also are one of the reason are. And one other thing was, for this um, low phase of, or we can say a low relation between India and China, is China was more aligned to the Pakistan, and China given a lot of financial help and a lot of structural help to the, and military helps to these Pakistan government or Pakistan nation. So this was also one of the issue between these three countries, that China helping directly, very directly to the Pakistan. So this, that's also India had to deal with. So these things created a lot of issue with the, with each other. So all these things you need to study. One most important, yeah, I can say the most important thing you need to remember is this reform of 1970 with the China, because maybe the question can be framed like this: who was who was the name involved in this reform, like Zohun and Lai, and what was the policy of the reform, what are the major sector, four major sector in this reform. So all these things you need to study from your own side. And what is a FTA, when this was established. So these you need to remember mostly the years when these things happened in this year, or the which organization were formed in which year, like European Economic Cooperation formed in 1948. So these facts you need to check on your, what are the acts led to the which formation of organization, what is Rome Treaty, what is Maastricht Treaty. So these things, I think these all things are important. You should check on these things. What are the India China war? Earlier also in detail we have done this issue of Indo China war and what happened in this, how this led to a lot of issue, and even India politics were changed with the Indo China war. So I think all these things are enough. Even you should remember the year when Rajiv Gandhi visited China, 1998. So all these things, because the most question will came in form of the objective, and there will be some sort of comprehension will be given, but the most of the question from in the form of MCQ based question. So you need to remember the exactly which year which things happen, because maybe little confusion can create a lot of errors in the examination. And these are the some of the MCQ that I have framed. You should check on your own self. So what is the first question is, which of the following country is not a member of ASEAN? So you need to list out the ASEAN members so that you can understand this question. And open door policy announced by Rome. So these are the question. And the another thing you need to remember the purpose of the most of the organization, like what is the purpose of EU, what is the purpose of ASEAN, and what is, so and the next question is ASEAN open door policy, which country started these. So that's how these question came in the examination. These are the some of, these are the previous year question, and some of or the question I have framed. So these are the question that you need to study from your own side. And you need to chronologically also, maybe question can be asked as this eighth question. So maybe you have to remember the which organization came first, and later on maybe the question can be asked to arrange these option in a series chronological order. So these question may be asked. So I think all these things is enough for the alternative center of power chapter. Try to solve more and more MCQ for your better exam preparation.